Wanna cause no problems. I just wanna live my life, but I keep on hearing about nonsense. Me and my dons ain't mobsters, but you know when you see imposters, we know how to read them faces, same way you know how to read them comments. If you wanna talk, let's talk, but around here, make sure you walk and your talk is constant.
Well, hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Death to Vanilla podcast. I'm here with my co-host,
Stephen Burkhart.
And I'm Rylynn Trader, and we're so excited to have you here today. We're kind of going to be talking about the artistry of video making and kind of the strategic lighting and audio and music and everything that goes behind into a good quality video. So go ahead and take it away.
So I think step one in creating a video that just like all ties together is really just having intentionality about each piece. And so in a previous episode, we talked about an outline of like how we actually storytell. So we talk about the problem, then the obstacle of what's stopping someone from solving that problem, the solution, and then the ultimate outcome they want to have. So that's one way of intentionally setting up an outline of how we're going to tell the story. And then one piece is the emotion piece, right? Mm-hmm. So one stat that I wanted to share is Unruly did a study and it said that videos that elicit strong emotional response from viewers have a 23 higher share rate compared to those that don't. So, you know, and emotion could be like laughing and so on and so forth. Yeah. We've talked about in previous episodes, like humor is a big part in both of engagement and whatever else, but obviously there's a whole sea of other emotions, right? Yeah. And you know, we all have watched those videos, especially like to me, I think of like, I can't think of a specific one, but just like the Super Bowl commercial, there's those like pulling on the heartstrings videos where you're like, oh, you know, and whether it's a powerful emotion or just like sadness or happiness or like longing, like they pull that out of us, and we love those things, right? We don't go to the movie theater and watch a movie because we're planning on not experiencing any emotions.
Yes, yeah.
Right? Like I think about the latest Guardians of the Galaxy movie, and it was like an emotional roller coaster.
Yeah.
Like I felt all of the emotions very strongly, crying, laughing, back to crying, back to laughing. I guess those are the only two emotions I have. Yeah. But it was a roller coaster.
Yeah.
And so I think, you know, just setting out that intention ahead of time is, what do I want people to feel when they watch my video? Do I want them to feel inspired? Do I want them to feel empowered, hopeful, sad, happy, like laughing, you know, joy? What do I want them to experience? And I think that's something that no matter where you are in business, whether you're a small business, a large business, whether you have great video shooting capabilities or not, just being intentional about that one piece can make a massive difference on how that video is going to impact your potential audience and build it. Because if it's like this says is true, like that means like a quarter of your people are more likely to share that with someone else, and that just continues to expand your brand. And if that emotion is on par with the brand voice that you're building, then that's exciting. Like for example, like, you know, I'm just thinking of like Home Depot, like the emotion that you could feel is like inspired, and that inspiration leads you to go and buy stuff that you technically don't really have the ability to turn into the thing that you were inspired to make. I mean, it's no different than people who see cool things on Pinterest and they try to like build like this amazing cake and it just looks like a 5-year-old did it because they never had the capability, but they were inspired to try, gosh dang it, right? And so, you know, I think just having that intention initially with what emotion you want them to feel is part of that picture. So obviously there's more to it than that. There's music, there's visuals, there's lighting, there's all those other things. And I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to you to talk about how we incorporate and think about some of those things in the videos that we make for clients.
Yeah, totally. So even like right now, we have our lighting set up. We have our lighting ahead of us. We have our lighting behind us. And that was all on purpose, right? We have the yellow to kind of tie into our logo. Boom. And the Death to Vanilla logo, obviously. And I think so often when we go into those shoots with clients, we do there's a lot of market research, right? We want to make sure we're going into as confident as possible and knowing kind of what the client wants, so that way we're not totally missing the mark. So we're finding that emotion, that a big thing is, you know, finding that music that's upbeat maybe, or maybe it's dramatic, because, you know, in those horror scenes, I don't know if you guys have seen those, but I've seen some clips on TikTok where they take out the dramatic music and they put in something funny, and it totally changes the overall emotion you experience during those like portions.
Literally, that makes me think of right now, like there's that video of Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris like unbuttoning to go in for a fight, and they put on like the sexy saxophone music.
Yes.
We'll see if we can we'll have to like see if we can add that to this video. But like, you know, so there's like sexy saxophone music and two men unbuttoning their shirts in front of each other, like very different than the original intention.
Dramatic, like, do, 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 do. It totally changes the vibe. Like, as marketing people, we know that emotion is a very big emotion, but if maybe you're not as much into that, then that's something you don't even think of. Like, you just pull something off of TikTok or the audio or whatever, and you're just like, well, whatever. That's a really big deal. Music is such a strong emotion, especially because not everyone can see. Like, I mean, not everyone can hear, but you know, it just depends.
Choose your disability.
Maybe we should cut this part out. I'm wrapping back up.
You're going to circle back to that?
Let me circle back to that.
Yeah.
But I think that designing eye-catching videos, too, I think we talked about this in an earlier episode, but it's within those first few seconds. Are you captivating your audience? Are you making those quick cuts? Are you giving them something that's professional, high quality? Are you giving them a meme? Are you giving them whatever you're giving them? It has to be engaging. You know, it has to be that aesthetic. It has to be on brand. And maybe it's not even a video. Maybe it's one thing that we've recently have been engaging a little more in is carousels. And one big thing that we've been trying to do is including both videos while also including like good typography, being on brand, our colors. You want everything that you give to your audience to be on brand, and that's one visual aspect that we have been really driving hard. And I think that aesthetically, we've been done a pretty good job. If you guys haven't seen those, go check them out. And I'm just going to go ahead and drop a little stat in there for you guys. But a study by Animoto found that 93% of marketers believe that the visual aesthetics are important in determining the success of a social media campaign. So 93% is a pretty big number for people to believe that aesthetics drive that. And I think a good example of that is Pinterest, right? Pinterest is such a big platform with such great turnover rates for people to buy stuff. And a lot of that has to do with an aesthetic. It's presenting yourself in a good, clean manner in which your audience responds to it and wants to buy your product.
For sure. Yeah. It's so like Reels and TikTok, but in like a thumbnail photo sort of way where it's like the image has to grab you because there's literally like a sea of other images and to choose from. And so then like you just have, it's just like anything else. You have to go about things from the perspective of like the person watching, which is like in a sea of options, does yours really stand out? Is it really that much better? Also, of course, is it on brand and all those other things? You know, are people going to recognize it as you when they see it? And that is that just like almost sickening consistency where it's like every single time you're like, oh my God, if I like see my brand color one more time, I'm going to throw up. But like you have to put that out there over and over and over and over and over again because people are literally seeing hundreds, if not thousands of other pieces of content a day. And it's like for them to like start to recognize you and remember you, they're going to have to see something that they can latch onto and consistently see over and over and over and over and over again. And that's really like the story of like what they call positioning in marketing, which is like what place in people's brains do you now occupy? And you can only like solidify that and start that by like that consistent message of showing up all the time. And so, yes, to your example, Pinterest, such a great example of like the photo version of a reel, which is like, how are you going to catch someone's eye like right now? Because you literally have 3 seconds to do it, maybe less.
Yeah, those aesthetics and I think too often they're overlooked. You know, like those audios, everything really does play such a big factor into how it makes your audience feels, and the emotional side of a video or whatever is such a big factor. You know, whether it's, I think sometimes we think about emotions and we just think about sadness, which isn't true. You know, it's like humor, it's anger, it's whatever, you know. So how are you making your audience feel?
For sure. Yeah, and I think there's like a really combination, like from a practical standpoint, there's a really combination of like two things. One, it's like, do you have some innate creative bent that allows you to be able to take some visuals and some colors and typography and combine that in an interesting way? And I think the other part too of that, and something that we've heard from business owners we've talked to that have worked with other agencies, is that like, have you even asked enough questions? Do you really know the brand? And so whether or not you're a marketer who's working for a brand, or whether or not you're the owner of the brand, if you're a business owner, have you asked yourself, have you identified enough things about like your customers and what they like? Do you feel like you understand your own brand that well, that you're able to have the source material to be able to make that content that builds the brand? And a lot of agencies like that we talked to, like I said, talking back to the business owners we talked to, just didn't ask enough questions. They didn't care enough to know the things that were going to lead to making the content that would have been on brand, that would have actually represented their brand in an authentic way. And so that to me is like when I think about like Brian Helton is kind of like our token customer success story, where it's like the first thing he said was like, oh, this feels like Helton Brewing, which was such a compliment, because it's like, well, we had just met him like that week. And then we like made this cool video for him that we thought was cool, but like between the music and the fact that it was black and white that he really loved, not all of it was black and white, but portions of it were black and white, he just like loved the vibe. It was just like him. And that was really fun and exciting to be able to like actually represent a brand well. So whether or not you're making content for yourself, ask yourself questions. Ask yourself the things that you need to know to get to know and understand your brand, so that you can create an aesthetic between the visuals, props, colors, typography, the branding, to be able to create content that speaks to people and has the emotions that you want your potential customers to have, whether it's being inspired, whether that's feeling a need to support something, and just be intentional about it. Just sit down, say, I'm going to make a video. What do I want people to feel? That's really all it takes. You don't have to be a producer to do that. You don't have to have a video budget to do that. Just have that intentionality. That's what I encourage you with. So if you guys are out there and you've just done a masterful job of sharing emotions through video, or you have examples of ones that you just think are really interesting, just share with us. Like send us a message, comment, whatever else, shoot us a video of like, oh man, I really love how this video made me feel. Like that's such a great way for us to learn and continue to grow. And we love hearing from you guys too. So thank you so much for watching the show, and we'll catch you on the flip side.
Wanna cause no problems. I just wanna live my life, but I keep on hearing about nonsense. Me and my dons ain't mobsters, but you know when you see imposters, we know how to read them faces, same way you know how to read them comments. If you wanna talk, let's talk, but around here, make sure you're walking your talk is constant.